We all get busy, and one of the biggest skills that you've had to master in this industry is multitasking. So
So every time they say, these people are coming at this time and they don't come, it destroy my schedule for the day.
You're giving out a blueprint on how to be successful with the services that they're providing by tweaking a few things. All right. Thank you for tuning in to Multifamily Off the Cuff. This is going to be our third episode.
Yep.
Today we have Dustin. Dustin, thank you so much for joining us. Irene.
Hey, how are you guys? Welcome to Multifamily Off the Cuff.
Dustin, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you for having me. I have been in the property management industry or the multifamily industry for over a decade now. I started with Lincoln Property Company and was with them for just shy of 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
And started with them as a leasing agent and worked all the way up to business manager. Have worked in markets in the Tampa Bay area as well as in Atlanta, most recently in Venice, Florida. And then as of October, I joined the Mill Creek residential team and am in the process of opening a brand new mid-rise in downtown Tampa.
Nice.
Wow. So that's what's coming up in your pipe of experience. Is that, so you're going to be in downtown Tampa?
Yeah, so actually we're building a 353 unit mid-rise right next to the Straz Center. So it's a couple blocks from the Riverwalk, the Museum of Tampa, right there in the heart of downtown. So
Wow.
it's in the River Arch District, but it's going to be a really fun project. We've got 6 retailers coming in. We're going to have mostly food concepts. So I think my wallet and waistline are going to see the most impact there. But yeah.
That's a hot area, though.
It
Yes,
is,
it
and
is.
we are going to be like an insanely amenity-rich
Yes.
community. Like, I'm not sure that I've actually worked on a community that's going to have as many cool amenities in such a hot area. So.
Nice.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
I've been seeing the apartment living style and how it have changed from, if you look back, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and now, right now in the era that we're living, it is pretty much like the way to live now.
Yeah, it's work, play, live. Especially with the pandemic, we really learned things have, really changed, and we've had to adapt and
Correct.
be
Exactly.
flexible and learn, what it is that people want out of a home. It's not just a place to sleep anymore. They're there all the time. They're
Yeah.
working. They're in our co-working spaces. They're working from home. They're having events. They're having friends and family over.
Yes.
They're spending a lot more time in their apartment than in the past.
Yes.
And
They're a
that's-
safe place now.
Yeah, it's true. It's very important to understand, the changes that's happening
Yep.
into the multifamily for all, for now vendors to start looking and see what it is that they can provide to improve even in a better or a higher level of experience to the residents. Because of what they're seeing now, the technology that being implemented in these properties are amazing. Not only that, but like you said, the amenities. I mean, they're taking it to a whole different level as far as luxurious, and that's what we're seeing the most. As a matter of fact, right now, the government is pushing for people to do more affording, for the housing, the affordable housing, because everyone is shifting into the luxury, style.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing the most being built. Should we agree with that? Because that's
Yes.
what I've seen the most. I don't
Absolutely, especially in the Florida market. I mean, rents grew 24% last year, and Zillow's got Tampa Bay as number 1 market this year, and they're expecting another 24% rent increases. So the housing demand is definitely a hot topic. I mean, they can't keep up with the supply and demand. So, and it's going to continue that way for a while. I think it's like something like 700 people a day are moving to Florida.
Wow.
So, think about how many of those are coming into Tampa Bay, who has been topping all the charts recently. And so we're going to continue to see this trend for a while. Absolutely.
Yes. So, Dustin, as you know, we were chatting a few minutes ago, and the purpose of this podcast is to educate. As we know, there's 2 sides of for the listener. They understand that there's the 2 sides that exist in the multifamily, and we have, let's say, to name them, we have the property side, and then we have the vendor side. You know, these two are very crucial for the day-to-day operation, for the actual experience of what we decided to say that the most important person in the industry will be the residents. Without the residents, we can all agree that without the resident, there wouldn't be multifamily or exist, or the owner even wanting to invest into anything if there is nobody to actually pay rent, right? So trying to connect the dots and to make sure that our audience right now and the vendors that are listening that want to jump into providing services to the multifamily, and that's why we want to guide them, okay? And at the same time, also having the property management to understand from the vendor side's point of view, you know, what it is that the property can do and adapt to accomplish, you know, this transition and then make it much efficient and effective when it comes to provide services to them. I happen to share a few questions to you, and I would like to, start with, your biggest pet peeve when it comes to receiving services. Okay.
I would say my biggest pet peeve is probably vendors showing up on time. A lot of times with certain situations, the property manager gets put as kind of the middle, becomes the middleman, where there's an issue in an occupied apartment, or there's an issue that involves a current resident, and we can't fix it, so we rely on a vendor. And if we contract those services and we say, okay, they're going to come out and they're going to remediate this issue, on Tuesday at 2 p.m. and Tuesday at 2 p.m. rolls around and goes by, and then a couple hours later, the resident's reaching out and saying, I thought you said this was going to be fixed today. And it's not. And then you're like, let me find out. So, we all get busy, and one of the biggest, skills that you've had to master in this industry is multitasking. So, we probably handled 15 different things since we set that up. So for us, it's nice to be able to put something on the calendar, communicate that with the residents, and then be able to let it rest until it's done. What's frustrating is when we have something scheduled and it doesn't actually happen when it's supposed to. And it's hard because there's so many moving parts. There could have been an emergency, or they could just be behind. But I think a lot of times what could maybe alleviate those issues a little bit is just more communication.
Okay.
So just reaching out, saying, hey, I was supposed to be there at 2:00, but it's going to be 2:30. And at least we can, reach out and let the resident know. So I think the biggest thing is just vendors that communicate on a high level with property managers.
Perfect. I think
That's a huge issue, like the communication. I'm speaking from the resident side when I'm told by my my community, like, hey, you are gonna get this done this day at this time, because I have a puppy and I don't like to leave her. I don't cage her, so I like to be there, because I don't trust the people that are coming in, and maybe they don't like those. There is a lot of things going on when you have a puppy like your daughter.
I think Dustin can relate.
Yes. Canela, right? Is it
Canela.
Yeah.
So
is she here? I thought she was going to be here.
No, she was, but
I saw her toys and her bed in there.
she likes to be the center of attention. So.
Yeah, we don't have that.
Yes. So every time they say, these people are coming on this time and they don't come, it destroy my schedule for the day.
Right.
So I think it's a very huge issue that I have seen. It's not that that you're telling me right here and you're telling the audience, but I haven't experienced that on my own, and it's so frustrating because.
Well, and even with things escalated and got that became even a bigger issue with the pandemic, because you've got people working from home a lot more frequently, and they're taking important calls, or video conferences. But not only that, but also because of the actual pandemic. People, when I was in Atlanta when this all started, and we had a lot of people that were very, concerned about who was coming into their apartment. Were they going to be wearing PPE? And this was fairly early on, where I don't think any of us, maybe we still don't know what the heck is going on, but it was very early, and it's like we didn't know how serious it was. We didn't, there was a lot of unknowns, and it was just a very scary time. So that definitely added a lot of pressure and concerns from the resident standpoint. Is like, who's coming into my apartment? Will they be escorted? And that's another reason why setting appointments and scheduling is so important.
We were talking about earlier. the importance of knowing who is the most important piece of the apartment industry, and like I just said earlier, is the resident. At times, I believe that either vendors or property management might forget that we're working for them, for to provide our services to exceed the expectation for the resident that for some for whatever reason they decided to move into your property. They could have gone anywhere else, but because of something that you guys did that actually this that made them decide to lock down a lease with you, and then the reason for everyone moving into your apartment come from different causes, and we were talking about it. They just recently got divorced. This is their first apartment moving from another country, or relocating to the state of Florida. They just had a baby. It's just a lot of different things that happen. And for us, is to understand there's a journey that's going to start at the moment that I decided to put a step into that apartment. Mm-hmm. So now, how can we, combining forces from the vendor side to the property side to maintain the happiness and the services that we want to give them, so they can renew? Because at the end of the day, this is a business, and you guys, have to dump and invest so much money in marketing for them to even know that you exist. Then to bring traffic into your property. Then also, convince them to sign a lease, because why they should be with you instead of the one next door. And then to keep in, to renew with you, because at the end of the day, you want that repeated business with them, just like we as a vendor want a repeated business with you, right? So what is it that you can recommend as far as to maintain that relationship, to provide the services targeted to the resident, so you can not only create that rapport with the vendor for a long-term relationship?
Yeah, I mean, moving is stressful, and one of the things that I like to implement with my teams is, let's not make it more stressful. Let's not add to that. I personally can speak from experience. I actually rented an apartment that was not one of the communities that I manage, and it's just on a temporary basis. But when I moved in, it was not ready. It was almost like the old resident had just moved out.
Oh my goodness.
And I, being in the industry, obviously I'm going to have a pretty detailed eye, and I know what I have expectations, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is like a property manager's nightmare. Like, it happened one time early on in my career, and it wasn't anything that I did personally, but it was like an experience that I witnessed where I was working, and I was like, I will never let that happen. Mm-hmm. It was just embarrassing, and like I said, you're adding that much more stress. Mm-hmm. So I can speak from personal experience. Mm-hmm. These things have happened to me, and whether that was a vendor that came in and supposedly did what they were supposed to do, or it was the property management side where clearly there weren't checks and balances in place. You should probably walk the apartment when the vendor says that they're done before the person moves in. So there was a lot of things that that obviously fell through the cracks with this particular situation. But I really think setting expectations, having one-on-ones with those vendors, going through the apartments and saying, hey, this green sludge in the bottom of the fridge can't be here. This is not a ready apartment. One of the things I like to do, and what I tell too my team, is my service manager will walk the apartment when the vendors are done. Mm-hmm. And then I also have whoever leased the apartment, the leasing professional or leasing agent, walk the apartment. And I don't let them do it together, because if they're going to do it together, they're going to be chatting, buddy, hey, what's going on? What'd you do this weekend? Which totally fine outside of that. But right now, I want you to use your eyes and focus. Right. Yes. And first impressions are a big thing. So I want that person to walk into their apartment and be like, wow. Yep. When I walked into my last apartment, it was like, I'm not going to move my stuff into someone else's filth. So I don't ever want someone to move into one of my communities and have that experience. So, I think setting those expectations, walking with the leasing professionals, walking with your service manager, walking with your vendors, and just really having, going through the details and saying, these are what I'm expecting, can you meet those expectations? And give them a trial run. Don't, say, hey, clean these 3 apartments and let's see how things look.
I think a lot of people, they don't put their themselves on on the choose of the resident.
Right.
Like they just think that is, this is a job that I need to do this job because I need to get paid and that's it. And they don't put themselves on the shoes of the resident. Like I'm
Right.
moving in. I don't want more stress. I need my apartment to be, like ready for me to just do all the other things that I need to do
Absolutely.
because I'm moving.
Well, and the last thing you want to do is have someone move in and then you have, 15 work orders on the day that they moved in, and it's like there should be. I mean, the ice maker should be working, the hot water should be like. Those are all things you have to check.
Right.
So.
And not only to base the podcast based on what the company that we represent is going to actually do, but there are other services. You have roofers, you have a staffing agency that provides services to you guys. You have also where there is the gate. My all experience, fire system and security and stuff like that.
Oh boy, do we have some stories?
Yes. Oh my God. And so one of the things I remember telling my old the company I used to work for, they have the companies that provide services to different trades, commercial or healthcare or multifamily, and they try to provide the same services to everyone, okay? So my advice to this company is that you have to understand the business that you're providing services to. In this case, if you have a fire panel, in this, let's just say fire system, that is beeping in a commercial building, and the fire panel is in the basement of the garage, far away from any of the tenants, it's different than a fire panel that's in the hallway on a apartment community next to a residence, apartment home. So it's a whole different game. So even though the same issue is a battery, that is causing a problem, the company will say that's not an emergency, okay? But it is an emergency to the apartment community versus the commercial building, because this one is not letting sleep the single mom with 2 babies in that apartment. That's causing a problem to who? To you, because what are they doing? Writing a bad review on your page that you don't care about their well-being or a sleeping baby or, their 2-year-old that cannot sleep. So I always tell and advise other companies that you need to understand who you're servicing, okay, because it's different. And then for the multifamily, it's a fast pace. When a commercial building can wait, the apartment cannot. It's a time-sensitive pace. Things are happening immediately. Your team might have, someone is moving now, and then you're promising this family that you're going to have the apartment ready in the next 2 days. And we're talking about turning because that's what happened the most to you guys. You might have a roof leak once in a blue moon versus what you have to do in the daily, which is going to be your work orders daily, and then you also have your turns, okay? And then whatever happened in the office that that you also have to take care of when it comes to staffing. One of the issues that we have right now is that we don't find workforce, So you have to rely on other companies that provide, staffing people for you in the meantime, whether it's maintenance or people in the office. Am I correct?
Right. It's not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. Correct. You can't. It's not going to be the same across all industries for sure. And I think multifamily is definitely kind of on its own island. I mean, you're right. You have to think about those people living, working, playing at your communities. They're there 24/7, and like we were talking about earlier, it's even more so with the pandemic. So being able to handle those issues that are affecting residents, in a timely manner is absolutely crucial.
Yep.
So in the other, coming to the questions, so tell me a situation where a service provider that have changed the way that you do business today. Something that you have learned, something that you experienced with a service provider, and you're like, oh my God, this is what I'm going to adapt moving forward.
Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is actually a utility service provider, a situation that I had with Tampa Electric versus Florida Power and Light. So Tampa Electric and the first property that I was at, it was a nightmare to deal with. Like when you send your payments in, they had to be overnighted by 2 days, and it had to be like so many different parameters and situations, and if you screwed it up, like it was a mess. Then my last property was in Venice, and we had Florida Power and Light, and they had the absolute best customer service.
Oh, wow.
One of my employees was just trying to be helpful one day, and I was out, and she went ahead and mailed all the vendor checks that I had, but she didn't send the remittance with all the all the vacant units, and just basically tell them where the money needs to go. And they Florida Power and Light actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, we got this check. Can you tell us how you want this taken care of?" And just every interaction with them was handled extremely quick and with the best customer service. Whereas even on, even at the resident level, calling and sending out my own account, you could do things online, you can send emails, and backing up when I was using Tampa Electric or TECO, it was a nightmare. I mean, you might have had those experiences where it's like you're on the phone forever and they're not really that helpful, and their customer service level was like non-existent. I don't know if they just feel like they don't have to provide good customer service or what, but that's probably like the most recent incident or issue that I had that I was kind of like, okay, like this is a completely different experience with Florida Power and Light, and it actually caused me to email like a compliment and leave a review. And I was like, listen, I just want to tell you, this experience was not expected. I went into this thinking like, oh, this is going to be a headache. This is going to be a nightmare. Like I put it off for a couple of days. I was like, is there anybody else that can handle this? But at the end of the day, I got to take on those difficult projects. But so I think that, the customer service is going to be the biggest thing for me. It's just, being accessible, communicating, being customer service oriented, and, that's with vendors, with staff members. One of my favorite examples to use is back at Millennium West Shore, we were just known for customer service, and that one of the things that was very apparent. Yeah, you guys know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you probably remember walking into the office, and if the leasing team was busy and the maintenance guys walked in, they would say, "Hey, how can I help you?
Yes.
Do you need a package? Do you need a work order? Do you need an air filter? Do you just need dog treats?" And that was something that's so rare, because normally a lot of places they would just walk by you. They wouldn't acknowledge you, and they did there. That team was trained to do that. And it also came from the top down. We had great management, great leaders, mentors that really instilled that in us, that, we might not be the shiniest, newest kid on the block. We may not have the coolest amenities, but damn, we can provide the best customer service, and that's really what matters. And that is why we had a high retention rate, and people, if you look online, there's great reviews. I mean, that's one of the things that is crucial.
Yep.
So and then for you, this will be something that you adapted, and it set some sort of expectation that when you do see that, you appreciate companies that goes above and beyond to meet the expectation for their clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Providing we had a situation where we needed to hire a carpet company to provide services to one of our clients. Last minute, it was a Friday, 3:00 in the afternoon, and we wanted a service to have a company to come out and dye the carpet. They had a move-in at 9 a.m. on Saturday. They just called and they answered the phone and they said, "I'm sorry, but we don't have anybody right now, and we close at 5." I said, "What happened after 5? Can you send somebody after 5? The after hours emergency." "No, we don't do that." "What do you mean? You provided services to the multifamily. You're supposed to have that." "What about tomorrow?" "We don't work on weekends." "What do you mean you don't work on weekends?" You had to wait until Monday." "We cannot wait until Monday because there's somebody moving at 9 a.m. What's the part you didn't understand? So there was no sense of caring about the situation of the client that's calling with a problem. And to me, it is crucial to be, okay, how can I solve the problem of this person that's bringing to my attention? Is deciding to use me, let's work on it, Let's just make this person the hero, because if I went to solve the problem, guess what? You are going to get the spotlight, because that resident moving in is going to be, "Thank you, Dustin, because you made it happen."
Yeah.
So and that's the thing, some of these vendors don't understand that once you decided to make that commitment to provide services to the multifamily, you have to be available because of the type of industry that they're getting into.
Yeah, but that's something that many people don't understand when they get into the industry, into the multifamily. They think this is a Monday through Friday type of thing. Yeah. And when they say like, "Hey, the move-in is on Sunday," they're like, "What?" Like they don't get it, because they're used to other industries where it's just Monday through Friday. and they're not used to that. So that's something that should be a Bible for the vendors to the multifamily.
Before you
Something
join
like
this
that.
industry,
Exactly.
there's a few things we need to discuss.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can speak again from personal experience. I moved into my last apartment on a Saturday morning, and I was like blown away. It looked like it hadn't been even cleaned since the last resident moved out, and I, was just in shock first for a little while, and then I was like, well, okay, well, I'm gonna go down there. I'm gonna talk to the person that's here who, was a leasing agent, and I know because I've been in the industry for over a decade. Number one, there's nothing that she's going to be able to do. She's probably not even going to tell the manager because it's a Saturday and the manager doesn't work on a Saturday and Sunday. And if they were going to have a vendor come out and take care of this, it's not going to be until Monday because most of the vendors are not going to work on a weekend and they're not going to do an emergency call. So I was like, maybe I should just go around this and call Prisco. But that's exactly what played out. I went down there, she was embarrassed. She was apologetic. Like I said, there was a lot of things that slipped through the cracks, and they've since, rectified things, and I can see the improvements that have been made. But I just knew they weren't going to be able to handle it. They weren't going to be able to do anything. So unfortunately, me as the brand new resident, I had to spend, like 6 hours cleaning the apartment that I was, paying a lot of money for.
No.
So, at the end of the day, they did end up giving me a small credit. But it was just the whole experience. And I'm still sour about it a little bit today.
Exactly, because it's not about the money. It's
Right.
your time. Like, I
Right.
mean,
Right.
those 6 hours,
Well,
like
I had my
your
moving
day.
truck
Yeah,
rented.
exactly.
I had my movers scheduled. I had all
Yeah.
this stuff going on. It was, it's supposed to be boom, boom, boom. Well,
Yes.
it went boom, all right. So I think, having vendors understand that this industry is one of a kind. And
Yes, it is.
if you really want to excel and you really want to capture business, you really have to be willing to go the extra mile.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to provide those services. You've got to be accessible. You've got to communicate. You've got to be available. And that's really, I think, what would set a company apart and what would really be attractive to multifamily, companies, property managers specifically, is if, we do have a mistake, because, hey, you know what, things happen.
Right, right.
Oops, like we didn't get this ready, and on the property management side, the biggest thing that I can say is communicate with the resident. Anytime we've ever had an issue, like, hey, I just want to, reach out and let you know you're supposed to move in 2 days. We found that the ice maker is broken, or we couldn't get these blinds replaced in time, and they're on back order, whatever it may be. If you call the resident, and they'll usually be like, okay, that's, not an issue. We'll get it taken care of. You can still move in. When it comes down to things like, the whole apartment hasn't been turned, or, hasn't been cleaned at all, that's a little bit of a different story. But communicating, making sure the property manager is communicating with the resident is number one. And then number two is, getting a vendor out there that's willing to take those on, at not convenient times,
Yeah.
on a Saturday or a Sunday or, after hours.
And if the audience right now is actually seeing this as an opportunity to step up their game or to start making changes, I mean, this is great information. He's literally telling, other vendors exactly. You're giving out a blueprint on how to be successful with the services that they're providing by tweaking a few things that, Dustin, not only that have over a decade in the industry, that have seen stuff, have experienced stuff himself, and then telling others. But the only thing you got to do is be reliable, is be there and accept the fact that you need to make changes, and not to be like you just said right now that you already have expectation of company not working on Saturday and Sunday. As an owner, I will be immediately after listening to the show, I'll be like, guys, we need to change. We need to change this. And we're going to start opening on Saturdays and Sunday because the industry we're providing service for needs it. We cannot shut down on the weekend because it is an ongoing business that they have going on, and there's going to be time, which, by the way, it doesn't happen often. You might have to have 2-3 people.
It's not.
Right.
Yeah, it's not something you can say, we are always open on
Yeah,
on
yeah,
Saturday and
exactly.
Sunday. And say, hey, we understand things happen, life
Right.
happens, things fall through the cracks. If Friday afternoon you realize that, hey, this carpet hasn't been replaced or cleaned, or, this whatever hasn't happened yet, if you've got a vendor that will come through for you, that's who they're going to reach out to.
Correct.
And I think those are not, like difficult things to do. You're not asking people to create a new Tesla or something like that.
They're like molehill issues that become mountain issues
Yeah.
because we can't get them taken care of on a
Yeah.
weekend or at the last minute.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
beautiful. I like that. I'm sure that the audience that we're targeting to are going to love. And if they're not starting making changes right now after they're listening to what you just said, I mean, they're just gonna lose. You have to adapt. And how they say, adapt or die. It's just gonna happen. They need to adapt to what's happening, and hopefully they understand what needs to be done as far as the vendor side providing services to you guys.
Yeah.
I want to follow up with another one, and I like this one. When I come up with this question, so what would you change in the industry if you went to have a higher position from what you are right now?
There's a couple things.
All right.
On the property management side, I feel like it would be conducive if property managers or on-site teams had more input and more say-so, or were able to provide ideas and suggestions to the development side. So we're on site every day. Some of us live on site as well. So we're there. We're living and breathing that property every day, 7 days a week, and we are seeing what amenities are being used, what amenities aren't being used, what issues are being posed, or what's happening. And we hear the residents. The residents are going to say, "Hey, we love this. Hey, we don't love this." So I think that's a big thing, is that there's a little bit of a gap that could be bridged there. When they go to build the next property, let's put a little panel together of property managers and say, "Hey, let's pull these 3 or 4 property managers and let's talk about, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? How's the trash system working out of this community? How's the parking situation at this community?" Talking about those issues and the different, polling different property managers, because they have different communities, different needs, different expectations, and really using that information to build an even better product, so that over time we're building, the best product. I think that's really important.
That is not happening, because there is things that happen that you like, who came up with this idea?
Yeah, sometimes when I see, like the things, I was trying to brainstorm yesterday, like what if I'm in your position, like if I'm in the property side, in the property management side, what would be something that I would do, to better the experience of the resident. And I was thinking, as a resident, I'm like, I really don't care about the things that they do for fun, because I don't use any of them. Like, I never go to the things that they do, but I have concerns about the parking, because I hate, like the parking garage. And I was thinking, like, they don't take in consideration, there are so many things that they can improve, but I think they don't listen, like, or they don't, they don't see the actual issues of the residents.
They have to, perform surveys, and if you have 350 units, we're talking about a property that's going to have roughly over 600 people living in there. Not quite 700, but at least a good between 500 to 600 people living there. And you're going to throw a resident party, the percentage is less than 10% of attendance. I mean, you always see a handful of people, 50, and 50
And
is
I'll
just
chime in
successful.
and I'll say, it depends on what kind of event you're hosting.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly. I mean, I know Dustin himself have done and been very successful and stuff like that, because I witnessed that myself.
Yes.
But as you can see the way he's thinking, he's thinking, no, because he was a resident at the time, in there, and then he had the chance to connect with the demographic, and you knew exactly what to deliver. Okay, that's why you were so successful on putting an event together, and the attendance was just outrageous. Then the approach on the pet, on the pets, and then you see the park for the pet always packed and full, but he knew the demographic wanted that, so then you went through that.
That was my first proud moment as a property manager.
Yes, and then you upgraded. I remember that got upgraded and everything.
Yeah.
So, but that because you knew your residents, okay? Have the developer understand that area right there is more pet, friendly or driven, then you start knowing. I mean, you should know better that that's where you're gonna focus your investment or your vision towards to, right? So, but that's important. You know, that's something that that's great to put in place. Also, then that's for the vendor side is to understand the demographic. You can now provide the same services on a garden style property versus a high rise. It's way different. You know, it's just two different approaches. You say, you know, the parking garage. You know, the parking garage is a bigger issue on a mid rise or let's say a high rise because it's limited versus a garden style. They might not have the same issues. There's not the parking. It's probably the gate now.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
it's just always going to be
There will be something all the time.
Yes.
always. So always something. So again, it's for the vendor side, they need to also understand, you know, that within the multifamily now it's broken into different parts. You have the mid-rise, high-rise, and garden style. They all set in different locations. You're never going to see a garden style in downtown Tampa. There is no room for that.
Right.
So you're going to see the garden style in the suburbs. So they're more oriented to who? To kids. So what is important to them? A playground.
Right.
Right. So they're going to have the 3-2s because it's families. But versus you see a high rise in Channel Side is more towards studios, 1-1, and to who? To the young professional, single people or recently married, no kids. I never see kids, you know, in the building where I'm at.
Right.
You know, there's no one single kid that I have run into. So are they going to put a playground? No.
Exactly.
Probably not.
So, but they're probably going to build a really badass gym. You know, so it's just.
Or a
you-
bar or something like
yeah,
that.
you know, they're going to put a bar downstairs.
Right.
They should do bars also for parents because they probably need that. So, but I mean, it's just understanding. You have to really do your due diligence to understand who you're serving. Even if you are inside the multifamily, then you have to break it to where you need to understand where and who you're going to. You know that in the garden style, they're going to be moving into the summertime versus the one in the high rise, they don't have kids. They're not moving in the summertime. They're moving when they get promoted. So that's going to happen towards the end of the year or the beginning of the year. So you have to be prepared to that. And that's something that I want to teach and share this information that we have gathered. How many, I said, over 60,000 apartments that we have touched in right now, less than 4 years.
That's amazing.
So it's a lot of apartment. And believe me, we've seen it all. From dead chicken inside a fridge to, I mean, we've seen a lot of things. So
Yes. Well, that's one thing in this industry, whether you're on the builder side or the property management side, you are going to see some things.
Yeah.
Yes.
There will likely
Weird,
never be a dull
crazy
moment.
things, yes. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
to wrap this up, and I wanted to come up with a sales question. How do you like to be approached when a service provider is trying to earn your business? Now you're talking to vendors that have no idea how to break through to get to you. What would you tell them and how they can approach you and be effective?
Yeah, I think personally, if I have the power to decide who I'm going to use for different services, I think that the most likely for you to get your foot in the door is if we have a relationship outside of you just popping in the office. I think we have a really great organization known as the Bay Area Apartment Association that really gives vendors and property management professionals the opportunity to network, attend different events and really get to know people. And I think that's important because we're more likely to work with people that we know and trust and have a relationship with than, Joe Schmo that just walked in off the street on a Monday morning when my reports are due. So yeah, don't come on the beginning of the week. Also don't come at the end of the month or the beginning of the month.
The beginning of the month, yes.
Monday.
Yes.
Or any other day at night. Every time, if you're going to show up, please do it after 10.
Yes.
Yes.
And it helps if you bring baked goods. No, but I really think it's important on the vendor side to know that a lot of times these decisions aren't made at the property level. So you may need to find a way to spend some time with the regional manager. Also, sometimes you have to realize that, some companies maybe have national contracts or they might have preferred vendors, and the property manager may not have the ability to change. Now, obviously, there's issues, and obviously those you have to deal with those and maybe come up with solutions. But I think the biggest thing is to understand it's not always the property manager that can make that decision and bring you on, but also I think that the relationship is super important. I can tell you 9 times out of 10, if someone that I don't know just stops in, a lot of times their brochure is probably going to go right in the trash.
Exactly.
It's not going to go anywhere because, you know, my last property was a brand new lease up, and we had been open for a few months, and, you know, I had people would stop in and drop off flyers and stuff like that. But it's like, okay, well, you kind of have to realize, like, at that point, kind of already have our vendors in place, you know what I mean? And a lot of them you might have a contract with, so you're probably not going to switch real easily. I think the biggest thing is going to be reputation as well. Like some of the things that we talked about, like being accessible, communicating, word of mouth, people giving you referrals.
That's awesome.
You know, people talking about the experience, like, hey, you know, I had this issue at, you know, the final hour of on a Friday, and this vendor stepped up and came out and took care of it. People are going to talk about that because that's a big deal, because those things happen. And I think, you know, offering services that cater more to what we're doing and understanding that the multifamily industry is not cookie cutter and it's not on the same island as, you know, other commercial and whatnot, other industries, and really catering to multifamily. And a lot of people don't do that. They try to, you know,
they try to do the same.
The same,
yeah. They try to treat the industry the same way as they treat whatever
Commercial,
other industry.
So
and it's a huge mistake.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I think that back to back, we have had a regional manager. We have now a senior property manager with over a decade of experience. And now you, Irene, can tell and see that what we're talking about is true. So it is something that, you know, that unfortunately has been very similar as far as the answer that you just gave us, along with a senior regional manager that have also 25 years of experience. And that's great to see, you know, that it's a consistent of expectation from the way that, you know, companies should approach them. So when, you know, our audience that is trying to figure this out and they want to provide services to the multifamily, now they know that wherever they are at, if it's Dallas, if it's, you know, Chicago, there are apartment associations in every location that they can be part of. You know, they can actually put their time and effort into an association to create a better industry and then represent the association. Like, you know, that we've taken it to Tallahassee, we've gone to Washington, D.C. to, you know, in behalf of the apartment industry, which for us have helped us tremendously to understand, you know, what it needs to be done.
And I'd say a good majority of the vendors and services that I've used at different properties over the years, a good majority of them are involved with an apartment association to some extent. And it's almost like you have to be. I mean, that's really how you're going to be successful if you're trying to target this industry.
Yep, perfect. Awesome. I think we got a lot of information. I think the audience will actually love to hear all this, you know, what you actually share from your perspective, from the position that you're holding right now, and also as a resident
That's
yourself.
amazing.
You know, that's amazing. So I think...
Well, it's amazing that you shared the experience, not the experience.
not the experience that you actually have, right.
This is what not to do.
Exactly.
But imagine now, you know, if somebody was to be listening to this, if they're not making changes, you know, right now, you know, this is going to be launched on a Thursday. If they're not coming up with new ideas by Monday, they're losing. They're losing. So I'll tell you
they
that
have
much.
to show up on Friday and Saturday and Sunday.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Dustin, thank you so much for taking the time and be with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This is going to be our third episode that's going to be launched pretty soon. You know, we'll keep you posted. And again, thank you for tuning in. You can find, you know, our podcast in different platforms. This is going to be Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcast, and also the iTunes, Apple, which is the iTunes one. Please give us a review or any comment that you have about the podcast that we have hosting. And thank you again for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.